Hello and welcome back to this course of videos on MongoDB. Now in this video, following on from the last video where we used a put request to update the user's registration info on the databases, we're going to remove the user's data from the databases. So in instances where the user wants to delist, so unsubscribe if you like. What we're going to be using is this one field here, which I've actually set as disabled here. This is the field that we're going to use to identify this particular record and then delete the appropriate records from the database. So let's take a look at the code. If we look at the event listener for this delist button in our front-end code, main.js, we can see here that we get our reference to the btn delist, add the click event listener. As usual, we prevent the default because we want to do an AJAX request and not a full page refresh. And what we're doing is we are, as I mentioned, we are taking the value in the email1 field, which is this value here, which is what we're using as a username to uniquely identify our user. Our payload is simply a single key value pair. Email is the key, the email text here is the value. Then we're running our AJAX request, and as you can see, the type here is delete. We've done post and put, now we're doing delete. Still our target URL is register.php. Once again, for the data object, we're passing in a key value pair. The key is data key as usual, and the value is a stringified version of the JavaScript object, the payload, as I said, which is just our email text. And so now let's head over to register.php to see what PHP is doing on the back end. So flicking over to register.php, we can see again we're requesting the server method. For delete, unfortunately, similar to with put, we don't have the $_ this handy PHP global that we have for get and post requests. We don't have that for either put or delete here. So again, we have to use this parseString method again to pull the contents from the body of the HTTP request, dump it into this payload variable, excuse me, then take the data key value of the payload, which is this stringified JSON object here, and then we are using the JSON decode to decode the object back from JSON into our regular PHP object. So we now have from here now this payload JSON, we can now pull our email address. So obviously we're not post or put, so we skip over this code. We are delete, request type is delete. So like I said, we only have one PHP variable to populate with the email. So to move past this, here is the code for post. We're going to ignore this. Here is the code for put. We're going to skip past this right the way down to delete here. So this is a block of code we're going to be running. You can see, first of all, similar approach to what we did with the post request. First of all, we're running hitting the MySQL database, running a select query against the customer emails table, which is this table here. Because remember, we can't delete from the customers table without first getting the primary key, the ID field. And we need to get the ID field from the email address. So this is what this line of code is doing here. Select the customer ID where the customer email is the email address that we've taken from our user. So here we are populating customer ID into this variable here. Once again, as we did with the post request, when the user first submitted their data, we have to use a transaction on the MySQL side, not on the Mongo side, but on the MySQL side we have to do a transaction. because we have to delete from two separate tables. And it needs to be all or nothing because you don't want your data to be out of sync. So you can see we have two SQL statements. First of all is to delete from the customers table, where the ID is the customer ID variable, and the second SQL is to delete from the customer emails table, where the customer ID is our customer ID variable. So we have our two SQL strings, and then in our try catch statement in the try, we are executing our two queries, and then and only then are we committing to the database, so we know that we're all in sync. As per previous, if we do catch an error, we're going to be rolling back and die, so we're ending the program right there. So that is the SQL code. On the Mongo side, again, it's a lot simpler. As we spoke about earlier, there's not the two separate tables with MongoDB because we can embed arrays and other objects. So our email addresses are an embedded array here, so we can fit everything in one single collection. So go back to my code, you can see on the Mongo code, first of all, as per usual, we create our collection object by referencing the customers collection within our DB object, running a try-catch statement. We're running delete one. This is actually interesting. You've noticed that I've used update one and delete one. I use this, as per previous, we use this one on the end of our methods because it means that Mongo has to look through less records before actually returning the value. As soon as it finds the one to delete, it will return. So it's very useful to use. So we're running our delete one, and we're just passing one single argument here, which is an array which is going to designate which rows we wish to delete. So we're using the dot notation, similar to on the Mongo client, the native Mongo client. We use dot notation to signify items within an array. So we're deleting the record with the first email address, which is this email address. As you remember, obviously arrays are zero based, so this is the first email in the array, and that needs to match our email variable that was passed in by the user, this field here. So we execute this function here, and a few other lines of code that we are running here before we echo back success to our client. This is to do with using sessions. Now, we'll discuss about it more in the next video, but I have actually set my session to last longer than one browser session. So, and usually a session will normally end when the browser is closed, but I wanted to persist it in case the user closes their browser and logs back in. And when a user unregisters or logs out, I need to destroy this session. So basically destroy the session cookie on the client. I don't want it there. The user certainly wouldn't want it there after they log out or deregister. So like I said, we'll talk about it more in the next video, but that's what these lines of code mean. So we're echoing back success to the client. If I go back to my client, we can see it's pretty straightforward. If data is equal to success, I'm just alerting you have successfully delisted. Now, the way that the simplest way to refresh everything was just to run location.reload and do actually a full page refresh. Now, I know I said that with single page applications that full page refreshes were a no-no. However, I figured for logging out and delisting, we would allow a full page refresh. So let's go back and just look at it in action. So obviously we're logged in as JamesEmer51 at Gmail. We're registered. Sorry, having a bit of problem clicking with the mouse again. I'm going to hit delist, it's going to come up with the alert that we just saw, you have successfully delisted, and then it's going to completely refresh. So you can look at both tabs here. We're completely logged out and delisted. And if I go back to MySQL, and I just close these two tables down, and then I open up the customers table here, you can see that the ID of 13 is gone, and on the emails table you can see again the ID of 13 is gone. If I go back to my RoboMongo GUI and I run my customers.find, I scroll to the bottom and we can see the last document available is with the ID of 12, so it's been deleted from there as well. So like I said, in the next video we'll be going through and be discussing the cookies and persisting the user session past browser shutdown, and also looking at logging in and logging out of the application. So I look forward to seeing you then.